Hello, welcome to another PG rated review. I am, of course, Patrick Lewson from Out of the Basement. Today is not really a review, but more sort of follow-up for the review I did of Bright. Because like I said, I did enjoy Bright. It's a good Will Smith action buddy cop movie. This is more, what the fuck's going on with the world building? Because, like I said, there was a lot of issues I had when I watched it of just the background world building stuff. But I overlooked it for just the idea of like, well, what's the movie like? Will you enjoy it as an action flick? Yes. Now I'm going to go more in depth of the problems with it. I know a lot of people talked about it as well, but I'm not going to go too much on the actual world building from the time they did the movie. Like, you know, the background scenes of the orcs and the ghettos and the graffiti and all that. That's been done a lot. I have other questions. Okay, so the history of Bright is the orcs joined with the Dark Lord, 2,000 years ago to try and take over the world. So take over, elves, centaurs, maybe lizard men. Who knows if there's lizard people or not? But all those ones there. So 2,000 years ago, the orcs, except for one guy, Jakar, who organized and united all the other beings on Earth. But if he's an orc and all the orcs were on one side, why would the elves and the dwarves and the humans and all that listen to the orc? Anyways, not going into that. That's other issues. But 2,000 years ago. So what else happened in Earth time period? Well, in myth, 2,000 years ago. Birth of Jesus, say. Which ended up, becoming Christianity and one of the biggest churches out there, caused the Crusades. Multiple crusades against Jerusalem and that area, but also crusades against France, southern France. Check it out, the Albican Crusades, as well as helped start the Spanish Inquisition and all that fun stuff that came with that. So, if you have the history of Bright, where they're part of our world, and there's this Dark Lord who tried to take over everything, you're not going to get the myth of Jesus. Even if Jesus did exist and he was able to heal people and, raise the dead, or, raise a dead. Why? So he's one of the guys who can control a wand. Because in Bright, they say 1 in a million chance a human can control a wand. And with a wand, you can do anything. So if he was able to do it, if there was a Jesus who did this, big deal. There's other people that do that. So you would not end up with the history of Jesus and the church and all that coming about, because you just had the Dark Lord do all this, and there's elves with wands. So that's a huge change in our modern world. Like I said, we wouldn't have a lot of the social economic stuff we have now in the West without the church. They for a lot of the bad they did, they're one of the reasons we have our Judeo-Christian Western civilization that came about from that. You also wouldn't have had the Aztecs being wiped out almost, because it was the Spanish with the Catholics, heavily Catholic, who came there and did all that in, in the name of God, well, getting riches, but they were backed by the church for them to go get converts. Same as the slave trade. It probably still would have been there, but the slave trade would not have been African Americans, wouldn't have been blacks, really, because the orcs were the ones that were were the villains. So you wouldn't do trade with other humans if there's the orcs. You'd have slaves of orcs, which still not right, but you wouldn't have been going to Africa to gather slaves from there to bring them over to the New World. You'd be using orcs. So that means like a lot of the African problems would have been orc problems, but they would not have been the African American issues. So you wouldn't have had the Jim Crow laws would have been there for orcs, not for the blacks, and all stuff like that. And that's not even going into the Civil War with the states of just, which isn't too long ago, especially for some people, it's still very close to them. But you wouldn't have the Civil War, really, because you wouldn't be black African humans, it'd be the orcs. Now, again, so maybe you would have still had it where the South was the ones who wanted the slaves of the orcs still to keep going, and the North like, no, we don't want slavery at all. But then you'd have, what about the elves? Where are the elves involved in all this sort of stuff? They have magic, and in the movie Bright, they say an orc that he was in Florida where the dwarves were. So where do see, this is where it does, you can't create our world and then give it a backstory of elves and orcs and dwarves with magic, because we wouldn't have our same world anymore. It would change completely. And that's where it's like, they tried to do a world building without realizing what would happen. So if you had 2,000 years ago, you had the Dark Lord, you wouldn't get Christianity. You wouldn't end up with the Crusades. You wouldn't end up with the Irish monks who saved a lot of civilization when the so-called Dark Ages came about. But would the Dark Ages have been there? Because Mongols charging in, and they brought the plague with them. When you have elves and other people who can do magic with their wands, would you have had the bubonic plague because they could heal people? Or would the elves have let people die, and then the people would have known that the elves let them die because they didn't use their magic to heal them from the plague, which would lead to resentment and then killing people? And in the movie, you see a dragon fly by. So again, okay, so dragons are real, but that would affect a whole bunch of stuff. Like again, just any war you can think of, when you have magic users on one side that can be there, that can do anything with a wand, or even just the elves who are super incredibly fast, agile, strong, and everything. So like I said, this is where there's so many problems with Bright once you start trying to figure out the world that they are in. Like I said, it's if you look at Shadowrun, the role-playing game, and the novels, they have orcs and elves and dwarves and trolls and all that sort of stuff. But they came about in the 21st century with some cataclysmic event where the magic was released again and make it to the 7th age, and magic came out, and orcs and dwarves and all those were being born again into the world. So that's how they did. They had most of the world was there until this certain point, and then the magic came back, and the elves and dwarves and all that, and that changed the whole world. Because of course it will. If you have people who can do magic and they can control anything, you aren't going to do, like I said in my review, you're not going to do very much technology, because the elves wouldn't want that. Anyone who's a magic user doesn't want tech, doesn't want a gun that can shoot them from far away, so that wouldn't get going. And if that happened, then like the Chinese and the Koreans and the Japanese and the Taiwanese and all those people, do they have elves as well? This is where it's like, why would they not have elves? Are elves only a Western thing? Are they only the white elves? They don't have Asians elves or African elves? And that's where so that's my rant. I just had to get it out because, like I said, I watched it. I enjoyed it as a action cop flick, but there's just so many problems with it for the world building. So if you're like me and you watch it and you're like, I don't understand the world, don't worry, no one else does. If you just watch it just for the action flick and don't think about anything else, you'll be okay. Otherwise, I had to get this rant out of the way, so thank you for letting me go on, and next time there will be a review. I'm going to be watching Black Panther and reviewing that. Thank you. Hi, if you liked that video, please like and subscribe to our channel. And if not, just do it for the kitten.